Oh, welcome to another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. I'm your lecturer, Lady TrenettWilson, and I am very excited about today's lecture as we go to the country of Russia. Now, when we hear about Russia, we often think of dangerous and mysterious, but Russia is really a beautiful country. It's known for a lot of its natural resources. And today's story is about a man who was an African prince, but who became a noble in the court of Peter the Great. Meet Abraham Petrovich Gannival. He's also known as Hannibal. So many of the people we study in Black history, we don't know a lot about Abram's upbringing or his background. The only stories that we have come from a Blackamoor, and we're going to talk more about Blackamoors. But there are history books and people who have done studies on this. So we're going to start with Richard Pankhurst. Mr. Pankhurst believes he was a professor of Ethiopian studies at a university in Ethiopia. And he believes that Abram was born around 1696 or 1698. He feels he was born to an affluent family, and the reason is because when he did get to the court of Tsar Peter the Great, he was well spoken. He was knew how to carry himself. And frankly, just look at these pictures. It doesn't look like he's had a broke day in his life. So he was raised in Ethiopia as someone who was well to do. Now, his father was believed to have had livestock that was won in battles as well as inherited. So that's another reason they believe that he was from a royal family. Well, during that time in Ethiopia, the Ottomans and Ottoman Empire, who were the Turks, were moving into Ethiopia trying to capture slaves to go to work on their plantations, their farms to raise stuff and pick stuff. And so they were going into Africa. A lot of people think just Europe did it. No, people from all over the world went into Africa in order to enslave people, and even the royals were enslaved. And so that was what happened to Abram. And the way he was enslaved is that his father, who is believed to have had 19 children and several wives, was out fighting, trying to keep his family, his village, from being enslaved, and he was unalive. And that's when they captured Gannibal. Now, a story says that his sister, her name was Lagan, and she was unalive through water trying to get him from being able to be taken on the ship. But they grabbed him and they took him, and he never saw his family again. We have this little boy. He had to be about 8 or 9 years old at the time, and he was taken to Constantinople. Now, he was taken there to be a companion to the Russian president, to be someone who would entertain him. But the Tsar, he really liked him. You see, Gannibal was smart, very, very intuitive, and he spoke very well. So as a result, Peter the Great said, you know what? Not only are you going to not only stay here and entertain me, but I'm going to baptize you. And he was baptized in 1705 as his godfather. The date of Gannibal's baptism has held a personal significance for him because he doesn't really know actually when he was born. So that was a very, very important date for him. He became a part of their family, and he traveled around as at a young age, around 9, 10 years old, with Peter the Tsar, and on his military campaigns, on his social campaigns, and he served as his godfather's valet. So that's why I call him a son, because he somewhat treated him like a son, but being a valet, you kind of knew your place, but he treated him very, very well. Treated him so well, he sent him to school in France, in Metz. And it was in 1717. And he went there until 1723. And that's when he returned home, back to Moscow. Now, during this time is when he changed his name. His name was Abram, but he also adopted the name Gannibal in honor of the Carthaginian general Hannibal. and it was translated in Russian as Gannibal. So that's how he changed his name. Now, Gannibal returned to Russia the following year after he graduated, and he became first an engineer and then a mathematics tutor in the Tsar's private guard unit. So he always kept him close, and he always took care of him. In 1723, he was due to return to Russia, but after the death of Peter in 1725, Peter's son took over, Prince Mishkov, and he gained great power there in Russia, and he did not like Gannibal. So Gannibal stayed, away as much as he could, but then he was exiled to Siberia in 1727. So he stayed there until 1730 when he was finally pardoned. He never was accused of anything. The young man just did not like him. So he was pardoned in 1730, and it was really because of his technical skills. So he completed his service in Siberia and he returned in 1733, so 3 years later. During this time, he built a fortress and led several construction projects where he became a master engineer. Fortunate for him, Elizabeth of Russia became the new monarch in 1741. So Gannibal became prominent once again in the royal court. Empress really liked Gannibal, so much so that he rose right up to Major General and he became the superintendent of revel, a position that he held from 1742 to 1752. And also in some records, it shows that in 1742, the Empress Elizabeth gave him some property worth hundreds of serifs. So after being made the chief military engineer of the Russian army in 1756, he received the rank of general in chief in 1759. He eventually retired to the estate that Empress Elizabeth had given him in 1762 during the reign of Catherine the Great. Though he enjoyed a very, very illustrious military career, Gannibal's personal life started off rocky. He married a lady who was a Greek woman. I'm not even going to try to attempt her name because I've tried to do it 3 times. But they married in 1731. I'm going to call her Dioper. And Dioper, his wife, didn't really like her husband at all. In fact, she felt she was forced to marry him. And they had a very volatile relationship. They did not like each other. Well, he liked her, but she did not like him. Well, he thought she was cheating on him. He had a sneaky suspicion, but he couldn't prove it until she got pregnant. And as I said, he was an Ethiopian prince, so he was black. But he was in Russia. Wasn't no black women in Russia. So he was married to a white woman, and the baby, when it came, was white. So that confirmed that she was cheating on him. Let me tell you, he put her in jail. He threw her in prison for quite about a long, long time, like 11 years. And then when she was finally set free, he put her in a convent for the rest of her life. So I don't think cheating on noblemen of Russia is a good thing, black, white, or whatever color it is. And so that didn't go too well. So he remarried again. For a little while, they said he was committing bigamy because he hadn't yet divorced the lady who he put into the convent. But eventually, they accepted the divorce and he remarried her name to a lady named Christina, much easier name. And they went on to have 10 children. Now, his children really lived very successful lives. His oldest son, Ivan, he became an accomplished naval officer who helped found the city of Ukraine in 1779. And he also attained the rank of general in chief. That's the second highest military rank in Imperial Russia. Many British aristocrats descended from Gannibal. And one other really interesting person in his family was his son, Osip. Osip was the father of this young lady right here. and her name is Nadia. And she was the mother of Alexander Pushkin. He was one of the most famous poets in Russia. I'll leave an end card there for you so you can click in and hear his story. After a long, illustrious career, Abraham Petrovich Gannival died on May the 14th, 1781, in St. Petersburg, Russia Empire. He was 84 years old. An interesting story. An African prince who became a noble in the Russian court. And all the descendants of him became poets and royalty. I mean, it's just an amazing story. Again, another one which is hidden in Black history. We were not only royalty, over in Europe, but there were other parts of the world where we were also royalty. And it always brings me pleasure, of course, to bring these stories to you. I cannot thank you enough for listening to these stories, for liking, sharing, and subscribing. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will join me for another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. Thank you for watching.